Okay, now we have Rosana Escobar, who I met last year at Extant, the Heritage Textile Festival that I co-founded and that takes place every May in Mallorca. Rosana is part of the new generation of multi-talented artists who are bridging disciplines such as biology and textile design. Based in Berlin, well, now I learned that possibly based in Barichara, but she will tell you all about it. Rosana traces materials back to their ecosystem to explore the interwoven relationships between material, people, and the landscape. In the last 3 years, her work has focused on the material transformation of the agave fiber, originally from Colombia, but also available in Europe as a byproduct of the coffee industry. Welcome, Rosana, and I think you will be sharing the screen, correct?
Correct. Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure and honor to be part of this group of 7 women trying to tell a new story, a new beginning also for Colombia, to not keep on talking about our war, but a new start, because we can today see the value and the richness of our country. Yeah, so thank you for this invitation. I grew up in Colombia, like all these women that we are talking today, and I grew up around green, a lot of green, a very rich country with vast biodiversity, and I think that led me to follow biology at a degree in biology, where I explored the diversity and I developed a sensitive eye for nature. But that was not enough for me. I wanted to be able to translate that sensitivity for nature into something tangible that I could explore. So I moved to Europe after I graduated. I moved to the Netherlands, and I had the chance to study at the Design Academy of Eindhoven, where I had 4 years where I could dig into materials and look into material transformation. And I came across the coffee bag, which was a product and the end of the life of a material. But I could also see in this bag a woven sack that was made from a natural fiber. So it had a technique, it was woven, it was a natural fiber, but it was a byproduct from another industry. So I wanted to reveal what was behind this bag. I wanted to trace it back, trace that material to the ecosystem. So that took me back to Colombia, to the local ecosystem, where I could almost re-explore my path and go back to biology, my first degree, go to do some field work, see the different, the rich diversity of Colombia, again, from another perspective. I really needed to get out of Colombia to look at it from a different perspective, from a different eye. This plant is an amazing plant. It's like, I think it's the plant of the future, the present and the past, the everything, because fique in Quechua means fiber. So it has been always an indigenous fiber, an indigenous plant that has worked for decades in the country. But it also became the material that was used to transport the coffee. And this vast industry has also taken away this material from the hands of the local people. People were weaving these bags to move all the goods inside the country. But today these looms are stored in the backyards because this has become an industrial process, although the harvesting, the hanging, the processing, the washing is still artisanal. It's still a crafted process. So this has developed and detached this local knowledge and heritage and tradition, and has placed the value in the global market and not in the traditional and cultural relevance of this fiber. So tracing this material really gave me a chance to understand the problematic that these fibers have, and to see also the value of this plant. This is a plant that grows across Colombia from 0 to 3,000 meters. It is a plant that can be harvested every 4 months. It doesn't need any irrigation system. It prevents from landslides. It stops fires. It also captures nitrogen, allowing other species to grow around. So these are the type of plants and materials, healthy materials that we want to keep on growing. And sometimes we think that the global market is completely detached from the ecosystems, but actually the global market has a completely strong impact in our landscape, in the way that we perceive the landscape, because slowly people decide to not grow it anymore. And this was the reality that I found in Colombia. People that today don't want to grow this material. So this parallel of the coffee bag and the plant made me think about resource, what we call today as the source of materials. Is that a resource only the place where things are born, or it can also the secondary life of materials and the byproduct of our industries also be a new beginning for materials to be transformed and reused? Wait, it's moving faster than me. Yeah, no. So my response to this from my fascination for the fiber was to see so much value in the raw. So I wanted to look at the nature of the material, how it folds, how it behaves, almost detaching it from its destiny as a coffee bag and reconnecting it to its nature, to see its own identity, its own behavior, how it's. So in the image in the left, you can see how it's normally washed and hung to dry. It's hung during 2 nights, and with the mist, the green goes away and it turns into this white, rich fiber, which you could even by mistake think that it's a horsehair, which has a completely different value that you would think from this like itchy coffee bag that it's actually at the end of its life discarded. So I was fascinated by this richness of this material, and the landscape also was a very like visiting the different stages of the material also gave me a lot of information into how I wanted to reweave the story of this material, looking at how the people have learned to work with it and have crafted a technique to transport it from the countryside to the city. So I also reimagine stools made out of 100% fique that have no structure but its own body to be wrapped around and almost carrying its own weight and carrying its own identity. So I have been immersed in this fiber for the last 3.5 years. Fascinated. It only gives me more options on how to comb it, how to dye it. So it has taken me more and more back to Colombia, back to where the material grows. Because I can comb it, I can play with it, I can create a new narrative, I can explore a language, I can develop a dialogue with the fiber, and it can also fall into the earth and become nutrient for the earth. I don't need to vacuum clean it, I don't need to clean after, because it's part of the landscape, it's part of the ecosystem. So that has given me a lot of freedom to actually return to Colombia, spend the last months in Barichara, also developing my workshop there, where I could also connect to the local people and to the story of this plant. So I have explored different techniques from braiding, weaving, a lot working with the raw fiber, which I feel that it takes you away from the coffee bag. It's a new story of the fiber, which stands by its own. It doesn't need an industry to support it, but it has its own value. And I'm talking a lot about this value because we need to reconsider and reivindicate materials, placing them back and giving them their own identity. So these are some of the pieces and weavings that I have been making, almost thinking more sculpturally about the fiber, playing with the form, the color, the texture, the cutting it. The poncho, which Marcela mentioned before, this like Ruana piece that also represents the mountains. And it also made me think about the range of distribution of this fiber, which is across the whole tropical Andean region. And the shades of color of these pieces also show the aging of the material. So for the coffee bags, the darker shades are discarded because they are not white and they need to be white and clean. That's how it's called in the industry. But actually the darker shades are very rich and beautiful. So I also weave almost the age of the plant in the pieces. And that has also brought me close to a community, to the people behind the weaving, to the people behind the bags. And that has been a very special connection, actually, to feel that there are so many people and so many hands behind materials, and to collaborate with a special person, specifically with Albeiro Camargo, that I have been working for the last 3 years, exchanging knowledge, visions, about the landscape, about the territory, about the local techniques, about the techniques that are slowly disappearing, and integrating them into the weavings. But there is still an industry behind. And I always try to think about the full life cycle of a fiber from beginning to the end. So I also been looking into how can we respond to this industry. We're talking about that the coffee consumption is massive, and that this material is every day being consumed, and as well these bags are every week being discarded. So inside the urban landscape, at least 50 bags per roastery are being thrown away in the rest of the bins. So I think the care and the value, it's also about putting our hands into the problem and actually thinking about waste as a resource, and also as an empathy to the process that this material has, and to the value and the energy and the people behind, thinking about how we can extend the life of materials. So I've been exploring new ways to transform it, working in collaboration with Soa Rosenkranz, a really good friend and colleague, transforming it into felt, into a new material for insulation of sound and temperature, and also creating paper from it. And I think this is really interesting in how we bring this dialogue between the craft and the industry, and how we connect worlds, how we connect Colombia to Europe, how can we exchange, and how can we bring a craft perspective to the industry that needs to reinvent itself. So I think this is all about circularity. Circularity is not only about recycling, but also exchanging knowledge and exchanging information that we both need. Colombia also needs certain machines to be able to use the byproducts from the agricultural waste. So it has been very rich, actually, to always feel like I'm a bridge between realities, between worlds, between the crafts and the industry, between the local and the global ecosystem, always moving between Colombia and Europe. And this is one of the pieces that we made from the coffee bag waste, a rug, a felted rug. And this one, it's rewoven with a technique from the one weaving, which is a local weaving from, or like an indigenous weaving from the Santander region. And it's basically a coffee bag that is been dyed and rewoven, and that in a way tries to capture waste, and in a way that we deal with it again. So yeah, thank you so much for having me here. And I think I wanted to finish with this image that it's maybe communicating in a way that we are reweaving the story together. We are rethinking what we consider valuable today in Colombia, and maybe reivindicating our identity and what we consider valuable. Thank you so much for having me, Marcela and Lee and Philippe.
Thank you, Rosana, so much. I just wanted to mention that I got to know Rosana's work last year in Mallorca, and her work caught the attention of a very important art collector. Out of all the participants of that year, I think it was one of the most, the best received art pieces. And I think that talks about the depth and the new frontiers where you're taking this conversation. So thank you very much. And I will also see you in Mallorca.
Thank you also for being a beautiful leader and example for young generations of students. It's very important, I think, for others too, for you to pave this way, you know, because everybody is looking for some new solutions, and you actually make it happen. You go from the beginning to the very end. So that's very important, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now.